What?
What? Yeah.
You died.
Yes, you can hear me. Hopefully those at home, since I'm not plugged into the machine, will also hear me. Gotta get some new pieces fixed. So good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And thank you all for being here. I so appreciate you all, truly, truly. And I'm going to ask you to take a moment with me and go within. And hold all our brothers and sisters around this world who are in harm's way. Those who are suffering. Those who are frightened for their loved ones' lives. Or their own life may be in danger. Let us wrap them all in our hearts and pray and believe there is a way to peace for everyone, where all people feel safe and heard and cared for. Let us hold that vision in our minds and in our hearts. Let us believe we are the love of the world. And so it is. And thank you for that. There is so much right now that's going on in this world that we need to talk about, we need to pray about. And it would fill up many, many sermons. But not today. My next talk will have on a state of the world affairs and more global talk. But today I'm going to focus a little on our personal priorities. And I'm going to start out by sharing with you one of my days. So recently I had some paperwork I was doing, some correspondences and notifications that I needed to finish up, but it wasn't really going very well. So I thought I'd go outside and just give my brain a little relaxed time and start weeding. And it was working very nicely. My breathing was deep and calm until I felt an ouch. And I thought it was my pine tree branch that might have been hitting my cheek. And then it was a big ouch, and I kind of let out a little scream, and I brushed my cheek, and as I did, 2 wasps flew off. And then they stung my thumb, but I had a glove on, so that wasn't too bad. And as I jumped up to run, another one got me behind the knee.
Oh.
Yeah. So I was hurt, and now I was mad. My qualm was disturbed. Plus there's an outside cat that hangs around and likes to lay under that pine tree. So I wasn't going to let my cat get swarmed. It's not really my cat, but. So my live and let live attitude went out the door, along with me carrying a can of wasp spray. And I killed the nest, I chopped down the branch, stuffed it in my garbage can, and proceeded back indoors to ice my face, my finger, and the back of my knee. My emotions were already shaky. There has been a lot going on. So this didn't help. I was filled with mixed emotions, and I was angry with God. We had some choice words going on. I pretty much told God I didn't like the way his job was being done. And I was going to give him a poor rating. You know, and since I'm a minister, I can let people know that. And I said things that weren't very nice. Later, I didn't feel good about my behavior and the things I said. It was probably that Irish Catholic guilt that was coming up in me. But as I calmed down and got back in touch with the part of me that made more sense, the part that wasn't so irrational, the part of me that was also more compassionate, so I could stop beating up myself for my recent outburst and come to understand that it was all congruent. My human self was acting human in difficult situations. Many factors had helped to build that momentum, and it was all very understandable. So now in my calmer state, I gave God a better rating. Because in the end, God always helps me to find my priorities. Riding in an ambulance with a blood pressure of 189/108 and feeling squeezing in your chest clears up any confusion of what is important. We worry on things. We get angry with how some things turn out. We grieve, we hurt, we get frustrated, and we feel helpless because we can't change the way it is. Some things can't be undone. And we tell God how we feel in very colorful language. And then there's another earth-shaking moment, and just like that, it becomes clear what's important, what matters. And we change how we were feeling, and we ask for forgiveness. But the truth is, God loves you no matter what. Even if you shake your fist and curse it, it remains the same. Unbothered by your display of wounded emotions or angry fits of rage. Love understands your pain and loves you anyway. Love can only love, and God is love. So we don't have to worry about being punished or left behind because we acted cruelly. It was our brokenness that we spoke from. But luckily, God always sees us through our wholeness. We are not broken to God. Let me tell you a little, not a story. Let me tell you a little joke to begin this. So a man dies and goes to heaven. And the gatekeeper meets him at the entrance to heaven and says, so here's how it's going to work. You need 100 points to get into heaven. You tell me all the good things that you've done, and I'll give you a certain number of points for each of them, depending on how good it was. And when you reach 100 points, I'll let you in. Okay, the man says. I was married to the same woman for 50 years and never cheated on her, even in my heart. That's wonderful, said the gatekeeper. That's worth 3 points. 3 points? That's it? All right, well, I attended church all my life and supported its ministry with my tithes and my service. That's terrific, said the gatekeeper. That's certainly worth 1 point. 1 point? Golly, says the man. How about this? I started a soup kitchen in my city and worked in a shelter for homeless veterans. Fantastic, replied the gatekeeper. That's good for 2 more points. 2 points, the man cries. At this rate, the only way I'm getting into heaven is by the grace of God. Exactly, my son. Come on in. You see, we don't need to bargain with God. We don't need great charities to convince God we are worthy. We were created by God whole, worthy, and loved. We do good not to please a judging God or to win favor over an angry God. We do good because we are good. We are made with the lovingness of the divine. And when we allow ourselves to be just that love, we automatically care for all living creatures. It radiates through our being when we help someone. It feels natural when we leave our heads out of it and go with our hearts. And God is not judging, nor angry, or anything other than a loving presence. And that loving presence understands our humanness. Spirit in us is love. Human us is love and good and jealous and fearful and angry and resentful and compassionate and kind. We are sad and happy, good and bad, rolled up all in one. We are meant to experience it all, like our first song said, to taste it all. But we will never be consumed by any of our emotions, by any of our circumstances, good or bad. We have been born with the grace of God for eternity. And this is just a passing moment on earth, a blink of the eye to the divine, which reminds me of a little story. You all know it, but I'm going to tell it to you again. A young boy was laying in the grass looking up at the clouds and decided to have a chat with God. And he said, God, I have always wanted to ask you this. God, from your perspective, how long is 1,000,000 years? And God said, well, from my perspective, 1,000,000 years is just a second. The boy said, wow, a second, really? He then asked, how much is $1 million to you, God? And God said, well, from my perspective, $1 million is merely a penny. That's unbelievable, said the boy. Holy cow. Hey, God, can I borrow a penny? And God said, yes, my son, of course. Just a second. Cute. I may not always understand why this or that happens, and I am sure I will complain about the way life goes now and again, but I'm learning more and more where my priorities are, what thoughts to focus on, and which to let go of, which to finally let go of. We find our priorities sometimes after a crisis, but we don't have to. We can work on reminding ourselves of what's important, where to place our focus, where our priorities are, often, daily, moment to moment. Today I'm going to share mini stories with you about what's really important. These stories by Mark and Angel help to remind us what's a priority. What's the thing to focus on? There will be several mini little stories, one after another, so kind of hang in there for me. I'll tell you the title at the beginning of each one. So let me tell you a story called Absolutely Okay. The happiest moment of my life is still that split second a year ago, when as I laid crushed under a 2,000-pound car, I realized my husband and 9-year-old boy were out of the vehicle and absolutely okay. That's a priority. That's something to focus on. Next mini story is called Second Chance. Today, on my 47th birthday, I reread the death note I wrote on my 27th birthday. About 2 minutes before my girlfriend showed up at my apartment and told me she was pregnant. She was honestly the only reason I didn't follow through with it. Suddenly I felt I had something to live for. Today she's my wife, and we've been happily married for 19 years. And my daughter, who is now a 19-year-old college student, has 2 younger brothers. I reread my death note every year on my birthday as a reminder to be thankful. I am thankful I got a second chance. That's a priority. That's something to focus on. This story is called Perfectly Healthy. Earlier this week, I went to the doctor's office because I was experiencing awful stomach pains. They ran some tests, took blood, and told me they'd contact me in a few days. I assumed the pain was at least partially due to stress. 3 weeks ago, at the age of 35, my husband, the love of my life, died from a heart attack. And this afternoon, I felt another wave of despair come over me, feeling like I had nothing left. As I sat there, the phone rang. It was the doctor. She said, "You're perfectly healthy and you're pregnant." And in that moment, I cried happy tears, because a couple of months ago, a fertility clinic discovered a condition with my husband that they said would take a small miracle for us to get pregnant. That's a priority. That's something to focus on. This story is called I Remember. It's been 5 years since my mom, my best friend in the world, was in a car accident that resulted in her losing all of her long-term memory from before the crash. Can you imagine that, how that must have felt? When I was little, my mom and I used to quote a Winnie the Pooh book as an inside joke. One of us would ask, "Have you ever seen a dragon fly?" And the other would reply, I have seen a dragon fly." Well, this evening, sitting with her watching TV, I randomly just asked, "Have you ever seen a dragon fly?" And she responded with, I have seen a dragon fly." We stared at each other for a prolonged moment, and then she jumped out of her seat and exclaimed, "Oh my gosh, I remember." That's a priority. That's something to focus on. Here's another mini story called There is Hope. I've been dying of leukemia since my 17th birthday. I was sent home from the hospital for my final few weeks, 156 days ago. But now I'm back at the hospital, being treated again, because my doctors now believe there is hope. That's a priority. That's something to focus on. This story is called Home Now. Today, after my daughter's funeral, in several hours of tearful soul searching, I started going through my phone and deleting 2 weeks' worth of condolence messages. There were so many of them that I eventually selected delete all, but one message didn't delete. It was one of the last messages my daughter left me before she died, and it was still marked as new. Sometimes my voicemail forces me to listen to old messages before I can delete them. So I played it, even though I really didn't want to at that moment. And the message began. My daughter said, "Hey Dad, I just wanted to let you know I'm okay and I'm home now." That's a priority. That's something to focus on. This story is called She Squeezed Back. At 8 a.m. this morning, after nearly 4 months of lifelessness in her hospital bed, we took my mom off life support, and her heart continued to beat, and she continued breathing on her own. Then this evening, when I squeezed her hand 3 times, she squeezed back 3 times. That's a priority. That's something to focus on. Now let me tell you our last mini story, called A Truly Beautiful Day. Last night there was a family of 6 at the hotel where I worked. They were hanging out in the lobby, sharing stories, laughing, and taking turns reading excerpts from a joke book. I asked them where they were from. "Oh, we're from here," the father said. "Our house literally burnt down yesterday, but miraculously all of us got out safely, and that makes today a truly beautiful day." That's a priority. That's something to focus on. Okay, you can all breathe now. No more mini stories. C.S. Lewis said there are two kinds of people. Those who say to God, "Thy will be done." And to those to whom God says, "All right then, have it your way." I'm like most people. I'm a little both. And I'm sure there are many times when this all-loving presence is watching over me and just says, "Oi, Denise, what are you doing?" and shakes its divine head. And there was a post that I recently saw, and I really related to it. It says, "I don't have a train of thought. I have 7 trains on 4 tracks that narrowly avoid each other when the paths cross, and the conductors are all screaming." Yeah, that's kind of my brain. But if I could correct C.S. Lewis, I would tell him there's not 2 kinds of people. There's one kind of people, but filled with all kinds of contradictions. That's what is in our human makeup. That's what it is being human. It's good and bad and happy and sad and fear and courageous and sick and healthy. But God sees us in truth, whole, loving, and good. And the humanist part is all a part of that great mystery. We are forever contemplating, where we ask, why am I here? What's my purpose? Is it an accident, a random occurrence, or pre-planned and destined, or something else? I think it's something else. We all have our beliefs on what life means and what happens afterwards. But there is no way of knowing what it all means for certain. That's why it's all a leap of faith. Actually, science and faith are starting to meet up with each other. But we will never know it all until we know it all. And then I believe our spiritual selves will lovingly and supportively and compassionately embrace the humanness that we went through. Because that is how life continues and evolves. Spirit takes form. So don't worry or fear your human frailties or your lack of understanding. Your role is to experience it all and to know that we are much more than what we see. And God doesn't always say, "Oi," but mostly, wow, look at you. You are so amazing. We may have our days that feel like endless hell, but we hold on because heaven is never far away. It's in a loving memory. It's in a friend's smile. It's in the hand of your loved ones. It's in the morning dew and the glow of night. It's the sound of joy. It's the words that sweetly leave our breath. The I love yous and the thank yous. One more story for you. A very, very grateful woman had recently been going through quite a few rough patches, as were many others that she knew. But she was getting through these tough times because of the job she loved doing and because of the love and support she had from close friends and from her church and from her family, though the number of family members she grew up with had been dwindling. But then again, she believed she was surrounded by them all anyway. Which reminds me of Jack Seeley, Nancy's dad. When his time was ending, he really couldn't express himself anymore. But when he would see his visitors, he would do this great greeting to show how much joy he had in seeing them. He would point to each person around his bed and do this wave. It was amazing. And as his time was coming closer, he would point to more people around his bed than what we could see. He was being loved and supported by all his family and friends, even those long gone. And that's how I feel. I am so blessed and lucky from both sides of life, the here and now and the hereafter, surrounded by those who love and support me. I am that very, very grateful woman who has gotten through tough times because she was prayed for and loved by family and friends and her church family, and who stands here today saying thank you from the very bottom of my heart. You make my life more better in every way. And let me assure you, we are never alone, and we are never broken. God sees us as whole, worthy, and good. And by the grace of God, we have each other to get over, to get through whatever our troubles are. And sometimes just getting through them takes everything that we've got. And coming here and being together with love and support for each other, those tough times are more doable. And those joyous times are even more enjoyable. I'm glad I'm here. And like Dana always says, your vibe draws your tribe. So we have really good vibes here. And I'm really, really glad that I'm here. And I'm so glad that you're here. And we will help each other in remembering our priorities and what to focus on. You can count on me. And I know I can count on you. Thank you. Namaste.